Well, a government petition calling for its ban has exceeded 100,000 signatures, and activists say that animal welfare must come before religious exemptions.
Well, Parliament is going to debate whether halal slaughter should be banned. The debate will take place next month. It comes as the method required to produce halal meat is non-stun slaughter, which some argue is too painful for the animal.
So we're asking, should halal slaughter be banned in the UK?
If we could talk to you first, could you just explain what it involves, the slaughter, when it's a halal?
In a decision that has ignited national outrage and sent shockwaves through communities across the UK, the Supreme Court has just ruled in favour of shutting down multiple halal slaughterhouses amid mounting concerns over animal brutality.
By cutting its throat with, in the Jewish case, they're very strict about a single cut. Islam is not as strict about whether it's a single cut or multiple cuts, and then the animal bleeds to death and dies. Yes, both halal slaughter, which is practiced by Muslims, and kosher slaughter, which is practiced by Jews, involve killing an animal that is otherwise fully conscious.
It sounds cruel.
It sounds cruel, but when people have tried to carry out tests to assess levels of pain using electrodes in the brain, etc., there's no evidence that it is actually cruel.
The ruling, delivered barely a minute ago, is already being described as one of the most controversial and consequential judgments in recent memory, one that pits religious freedom against the nation's animal welfare standards in a dramatic and deeply divisive showdown. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favour. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now back to the video.
Can you just explain the religious significance of why you do it that way? What is the point? Why couldn't you just do it in a more, some would argue, humane way? Is there a religious significance?
The Jewish scholars, long before the rise of Islam, made it very clear that it involves killing the animal so it bleeds to death. You're not allowed to, in the Bible, you're not allowed to, from memory, a long time ago since I read the Bible. Yes, there is a religious significance. If you pick up and read your Old Testament, you will see a clear categorical prohibition against consuming blood.
According to the ruling, a series of undercover investigations and whistleblower testimonies provided what the court called overwhelming evidence of inhumane practices inside several halal-certified facilities. Footage submitted to the court reportedly showed animals being slaughtered without adequate stunning procedures, in direct violation of UK animal welfare laws. Activists and journalists had been quietly gathering evidence for months, some even years, before submitting a collective case that finally reached the highest court in the land. The verdict? Immediate revocation of licences for dozens of halal slaughterhouses across England, Scotland and Wales, with warnings that more could follow if industry standards aren't reformed immediately.
Now, Charlie, you're someone who takes religious freedom very seriously. How could you defend banning halal and kosher practices and also maintaining religious freedom at the same time?
To eat animals that have been strangled, for example, and Islam, which is a religion in the same path as Judaism and Christianity, has adopted the same principles.
Well, I think it comes back to this debate about how we should approach the topic of religion in the modern world, because Britain historically is a Christian country. I believe that it remains a Christian country, even though so many people now identify as atheists.
And within minutes of the court's announcement, government enforcement teams were reportedly dispatched to begin the closures, starting with facilities named directly in the case files. The response has been nothing short of explosive. Leaders within the Muslim community have condemned the ruling as discriminatory, inflammatory, and a direct attack on religious practice. This is not just about food. This is about identity, about belief, and about our rights as British citizens. One mosque representative declared at an emergency press conference, to frame this as an animal welfare issue without addressing the cultural and religious sensitivities involved is a betrayal. Protests are already forming outside Parliament and major city centres. Social media has erupted, with hashtags like #halal ban and Supreme Court shame trending nationally. Meanwhile, far-right voices have seized the moment to fuel anti-Muslim rhetoric, further escalating tensions. The Muslim Council of Britain has called for an emergency dialogue with the government, warning that the ruling risks alienating an entire community and igniting nationwide unrest. But animal rights organisations are celebrating the decision as a landmark victory. Groups like Animal Justice UK and Compassion in World Farming have long campaigned against non-stun slaughter practices, arguing that they cause unnecessary pain and fear to animals. This is not about religion, one spokesperson said in a televised interview. This is about cruelty. What we've seen happening behind those doors is unconscionable. Today, justice was served. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has remained cautious in his response so far, urging both sides to remain calm. His brief statement emphasised respect for the rule of law and encouraged peaceful discourse, while acknowledging the deep emotional weight the ruling carries for many. But critics argue that the government's silence in the weeks leading up to this verdict was a political miscalculation, allowing outrage to build without a clear voice of guidance. Legal experts say the case could set a far-reaching precedent, not just for halal practices, but for kosher slaughter methods as well. Once the door is open to religious scrutiny, under the guise of animal welfare, one constitutional lawyer warned, every faith-based practice becomes vulnerable. What makes this case particularly incendiary is the speed and scope of the enforcement. Unlike past judgments that allowed time for adaptation or gradual implementation, this ruling mandates immediate action. Trucks are reportedly already arriving at affected facilities to begin shutdown procedures, while workers, many of whom are from minority communities, face sudden unemployment with no warning. Public opinion, meanwhile, is deeply divided. Polls conducted just days before the verdict showed growing concern about animal welfare in religious slaughterhouses, but also strong support for preserving the UK's multicultural values and religious freedoms. Today's ruling, by siding overwhelmingly with animal rights, may satisfy one side of the debate, but it leaves the other feeling targeted, unheard, and betrayed. In towns with large Muslim populations, local leaders are calling for peaceful protest, but warning that the decision could have long-term cultural consequences. This is how communities get pushed to the edge, said one imam. It starts with food, it ends with division. International reactions are beginning to pour in as well. Several Muslim-majority countries have condemned the ruling, calling it Islamophobic and demanding that the UK respect international norms on religious freedom. Some are even threatening trade repercussions, especially in the export of halal-certified British goods. Others are watching closely to see whether similar cases arise in their own legal systems. As the sun sets on this historic day, the UK finds itself at a volatile crossroads. The Supreme Court may have ruled on animal cruelty, but the country is now grappling with something even bigger, a national identity crisis. Can the UK uphold its animal welfare standards without alienating the very communities that make it diverse? Can law and religion coexist without collision? And can a single court ruling unravel years of fragile cultural integration? For now, the only certainty is uncertainty. The streets are heating up, voices are growing louder, and the clock is ticking for a government suddenly caught between justice and jeopardy.